our next lecture. Today we will speak about the tango. And because we don't have a lot of time, we decided to speak about the problems which we can see on the floor in nowadays, in this dance. And the topic is the energy, the direction of the energy. But before to start to speak about the energy, we would like to start about the changes which were in the tango for the last many years. If I just speak about the position, all we know that the tango have different position. In tango we don't have a swing, so it's a bit different compared to the other dances like waltz, Venus waltz, foxtrot or quickstep. So if we speak about the position, we can see that the right hand of the man is a little bit more deep. The left hand of the lady also in the different shape. And also the other hand of the man, the left hand is a little bit different. And of course, we keep this change. But what really is different compared before? If in other four dances, before and now, also the position changed, but the structure not so much, so what was happening before and also now. The man stays on the right foot, the lady comes on her left foot, we do the connection, and then we start to do the shape with the rotation to the right. So again, if I go more straight to you, I hope you can see me. So the man on the right foot, lady on the left, we connect and have a small rotation to the right to create this spiral. If we speak about the tango, the rule before was like this. So the man stayed on the left foot, lady comes also on the left foot, and then we have the rotation to the right. So, to the left, sorry, to the left. So it's really different. Swing dance on the right, come, turn right. Tango on the left, lady comes, the man changing the weight and turning to the left. So more deep position. In nowadays, what we can see that many couples, also the top couples, they don't use like this. Of course, the amplitude, the volume, the space between the heads, between the man and the lady, is also quite bigger than before. And of course, it takes also some good things with this and some bad things. Yeah, you can, I can see.
Yeah, of course, if we speak about the position before, it gives us opportunity to feel more compact our position. And in this case, the energy remains better inside of the couple. But if we see the choreography of those days and of nowadays, of course, it's different. We start to use different speed, we started to use different amplitude, and of course, to use bigger speed, bigger amplitude, we need stronger common center. And in this case, we also have to create this type of the rotation like in the swing dances, so to the right, to have more stability in the right side. So if we create tango position nowadays, we also use rotation to the right, and in this case our right side is more connected, more compact with each other. But the bad thing, what is happening with the couples nowadays, that this amount of stretch which they create in tango is almost the same to the swing dances, and this stretch starts to pull the body weight too much up. So of course this is the bad thing, and what we can see nowadays on the floor when the couples are dancing in general tango, sometimes it doesn't look like tango anymore, because the type of energy in tango should be completely different from the rest for swing dances.
Yes, so if we take the swing dance, we put the energy sometimes up and sometimes down. So it's the swing action. So when I have the position with the rotation to the right, with this one, so we keep the energy there, and when we do the rise, for example, the energy goes up and then down. So it's always changing. In the tango, we don't have a swing, so it's more flat. And when immediately the energy goes up, it starts to be very strange to look outside. So we start to lose the dance. So to start about the energy, immediately I would like to show you a very easy example. So if I create the promenade in the walls, the idea is to show yourself as much high as possible. So the stretching goes up and then we go down. So I remember one of the greatest lessons with one English teacher. He gave me this example, like in the promenade, in the walls, you need to imagine that you are like the eagle and you take the fish from the water and come back. So you go to the promenade, you are the eagle, and then whoop, and come back. So this is the idea of the swing. So again, if I create the promenade position in the walls, I try to stretch up. So my energy goes very high and then only down. So again, promenade in the walls, and then now we try to do the same in tango. Immediately I feel myself very, very stupid. Tango is more here. And if I do the same in the walls, also I feel very straight. So in the walls we go more high, we are more open, but in the tango this position looks very, very strange. It's more inside. This is the biggest problem which I can see on the floor. That the energy is too high and the couples try to be aggressive, but in the end the energy which they put, it's in the wrong direction. It's a good energy, but wrong direction. So if, for example, we do Spanish break, and I do, so it was very strong, but it was up, so it looks not really aggressive. I remember once we had the lesson with a guy from the theater. He played in the movie, he's the actor. And he gives us some advices which I didn't know before. Honestly, in 2-3 lessons, he changed totally my idea of the dancing and idea of the energy and emotions. And I remember that he said that when they play in the theater, on the stage, when they want to produce light energy, positive energy, they put the voice up. This is the secret of actors. So, like, hello, when the energy goes there, is very light and positive. When they want to be aggressive and negative, they put the voice down. So it's here. So for example, if you are in the Prague, beautiful city Prague, in the very, very side part of the Prague, in 2 o'clock in the night, you stay on the bus station and somebody comes to you like this. Immediately you start to feel negative. It's better to run. I don't know about the Prague, but in Moscow for sure, if somebody comes to you like this, better to run. If somebody wants to come to Russia, this is just the secret for you, okay? Just the advice. So, this is honestly the main idea for the tango when I dance, that every action which I do, I need to put to the floor, but not with a high body weight.
So first thing, when, for example, I start lesson with a new couple which tries to improve their tango, we speak about the connection inside. And for me, it's like half of your success in tango if you produce the correct position, the correct communication of the body weight. So why we start to be so much up in tango is that when we don't release the hip joints enough. Because for the tango, the dimension is the main one. We don't have swing, and that is why all the energy is because we use the rotation to the opposite side from the bottom and in the upper part, and because of these counter actions, we start to have some energy in our body. And if you stay too much tight in your body connection, and especially in the hip joints, immediately you feel that this part starts to be too much overstretched and overstressed. So what is really very, very important is to have your hip joints slightly hanging onto your body. It doesn't mean that it should be always like backward. It should be released, of course, supported with the power of your feet up, the back parts of your hips. The back part, I'm just showing you a little bit. The back part of your hips should be supported from the feet, but the front part of your joints should be always free in order to change during the rotation. So this is first thing. Another thing for the lady, especially, this is very important that when you create your stretch, you have to use a little bit longer center than in the swing dances, and the direction of your shape is not anymore, first I'm saying because otherwise you don't hear it, is not anymore backward to the left, but slightly more forward to the left. So if I'm showing you, okay, we do swing position first, and now,
can I just turn?
And now we do tango position.
So immediately in the tango position from Olga, I feel that she goes more forward, diagonally forward than diagonally back. In this swing dance in the waltz, for example, I feel she produced diagonal back. In the tango, diagonal forward. So in that, her head weight, I feel not on the heel in the tango, more on the toe.
So what we have to use in tango, we have to use the length of our back to make our left arm longer in order to close it around man's right arm and not to feel overstressed, because many girls are really stressing a lot their bodies, using only the arm around and still continue to stretch their bodies diagonally backwards. So in this case, it's not possible to feel balance because you try to stretch there, but the arm should go around to this side. But if you use the length of your back to the side, you will make in this case actually the length of your arm bigger and less stress. You can go around man's right arm. If I show you once again. And another important thing is that when we have long body connection, we are very free to change the down part. Because I can have the hip joints released, but if my center is too much strong, is too much blocked, not stretched up enough, even if I'm relaxed in the last part, I change the bottom, but in the end, all the body reacts. And for all the positions in tango, we have to change a lot, from close to prominent to outside, so maybe to the prominent position we changed more than in the swing dances. And because of this, one time you change like this, another time you change like this, and it's like the snowball, which starts to be maybe not so big in the beginning, but during the dance you feel more, because of this lack of separation, that in the end of the dance you are completely too much together. So to create nice tango feeling, first of all, try to change your body position.
True. And again, we come back to the energy, because everything is very connected. I remember we was watching one of the Russian championship amateur, and we had a start, so we start from the second round, and we just watched the first round, and we come to the floor just to watch, and there was a tango. And I don't want to mention the name, and honestly, I don't think you know these dances. Also, I don't know. But one girl, every accent when they did in the tango, she put also the sound on it. Like every time when the partner produced some strong accent, because it was in the wrong direction, she do like this, like, ooh, ooh, because she always was moving back, but also with the sound. So every accent was like this. Or prominent. So everything goes there. The rule is, in the waltz, when we have some rise. Our chin should be more high than the horizontal line. Like we are stretching there. In the tango, it should be parallel to the horizontal line. Not there. And the same is not only in the exit, but also when we move. So if I speak about the movement, let's say this way. In the feet, we have 4 different positions. Heel, flat, flat toe, and toe. In the tango is only 3. Heel, flat, flat toe. We don't have toes. So when honestly before was only 2 positions, heel and flat. Almost no flat, even flat toe, because not enough syncopation. Now is a lot of syncopation, and of course we cannot make it very fast on the flat feet, and we use also flat toe, but not the toes. If we use the toes, the energy goes up. So very popular figure, something like lockstep, syncopated lockstep. I see the couples, ta 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 ta. So immediately, because of the feet, the energy goes too much high. So we need to use only flat. See like that? We use flat toe. So immediately we are more grounded to the floor and we have a better grip. Every time when I dance, I try to use these ideas. So for example, if we do syncopated following, like popular step down, it's not 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1. So when I change it, I'm going up and all the energy goes here. So every time, even during the movement, I need to feel to the floor. To the floor. So I feel myself more down. And I had one very nice lesson. Also, I had a lot of very nice lessons. But one of them I remember about this topic, that one English teacher asked me, you know what means sit down? I said, yes, of course. Sit down. And you know what means stand up? I said, yeah, of course, stand up. And then he asked me, but do you know what means sit up? And sit up, I don't know. I said, no, I'm not from England, I'm from Russia. It's not my language, English, native language, yes, so I don't know. And he said, we don't have in England, in English language, we don't have sit up. But this is the way how you need to dance. So the idea is like, you sit, but up. So again, it's what Olga said about the hip joints, about these muscles, that it's not going there, so you become too heavy in the way. Because I don't want that after my lecture you go to the floor, you go in the studio and you try, okay.
So many couples, they just try to really bend their knees a lot to stay same level and to stay down, but in this case they're not having any energy.
Yes.
So very important to be mobile and to have possibility still to rotate and to separate the body. And another very important thing, guys, try to feel that the energy of your body is always going from your back around. So the change in the position about which we are speaking today, that yes, we need to create rotation to the right a little bit more, but we need to release the hips, still have very long center. These actions will help you to feel that this part is always like hugging each other. So when I dance with Dima, I never feel the power of his front muscles. I always feel that he's using his muscles from the back by creating a circle around us.
So if I do link, I feel big spine, I sit but up, and the energy is not there, it's more to the floor. And the last one, which we want to give the recommendation, that in every accent, when we do the accent, we have the beginning and the end. So it's 2 actions in one. So if I take Olga's hand, I start the movement, you just start and I finish. Start and finish. And much more important when you finish. So many times I see the energy, which after nobody controls. So it's much more important how you control the energy. So if I do very strong link, but I don't control the last part. So you can see immediately something goes like this. So for me, it's very important in every action which I do in the tango to control the last part. Boom. So immediately I feel that the energy compact inside. So guys, I hope it was not boring for you. This is the main problems which we can see in the tango in nowadays, that the body weight is a little bit too high. And of course we want to produce big speed, big energy and big stretch, but sometimes we are wrong with the direction of the energy. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much and see you next time.